welcome to another Peace Podcast. You know, Peace Podcasts allow you to understand the reason why these people who we interview bring peace to you just by hearing their voice and the challenges they faced and what they're doing today. I'm looking at Irene Kai and I'm looking at David Wick. And you know, at the beginning, I was just going to separate them and do one at a time, but they just are such a couple, and that's what they are. They are a couple in love and a couple who work for peace. And you don't often find that culture of peace in a family. And so today I thought, well, let's just start with a culture of peace with Irene Kai and David Wick. Welcome to the Peace Podcast.
Well, thank you very much. What a delight to join you
Well,
with this, and everyone else who's watching who clearly has a interest in peace and peace building.
Well, I've been doing some research and it says, tell us that now 87% of people are watching podcasts and listening to podcasts more than television because it's very specific to what they want. They want to know about how can I bring peace into my life? What do I have to do to write that book? And they can get the information without watching all the commercials, and it's really nice. Well, Irene, I'm going to start with you. How did you meet David?
Thank you, Barbara. Are you ready? We are the pioneers of online meeting. It was 20 years ago on AOL Personal.
So September 1999, that Irene put up just for 24 hours, a little notice on the AOL Personals, and I was just kind of looking around, just having fun, just kind of out of interest or curiosity. And her message was brief, but it was very powerful, and it really touched me. It was very spiritual in its focus, and it was just kind of like there's something there, and I just responded with three sentences or something.
Yeah, at that time I'm already in Ashland, and David was in the Bay Area.
Well, I remember David talking about Pathways to Peace, that he was part of that Avon Madison Pathways to Peace. And that is exciting because Avon's a very dear friend of mine. And when I met my husband in the early 90s, Robert Muller, I was new to this whole culture of peace. I was new, not that I hadn't been practicing peace, but I was new to the kinds of peace that they had in San Francisco with Pathways to Peace. And I went up for the 50th anniversary of the United Nations, and lo and behold, Avon says, welcome, sister. And that's her welcoming way of bringing peace to everybody. Don't you agree, David?
Oh, very definitely. Yes, and that is her way also, being very open and greeting and loving. And with the Pathways to Peace, as a part of the beginning, well, working with Robert Muller, your husband, at the United Nations and establishing the International Day of Peace in 1981, which is part of what Irene and I brought here to Ashland. But yeah, it goes way back, and so we've been very involved with the peace building, culture of peace ideas for a long time.
Well, I'm going to jump over to Irene again because Irene, I was going to save this for your interview, but you're the one that kind of followed your intuition and found the peace flame. And that just when you were both on the Rotary E Club of World Peace and you talked about that peace flame, I said, if we could just get in touch with our intuition, what we would be able to do. Talk a little bit about how that led you to where you found that peace flame and how you brought it back to Ashland.
I was just visiting the UK, going to an art exhibit, the International Art Exhibit. Banksy was the artist. He invited 65 artists around the world and created Dismal Land. And that was like the real big deal in the art world. It's like the big musical, what is that, Woodstock of the art field. So my daughter and myself just went there for that. So we went to the UK, rented a car just for one day, and my daughter said, we need to go explore. Let's go to Wales since we have a car. So I said, okay, we'll drive the car to Wales. And we just went around driving deep into the Snowdonia National Park. It was really beautiful up in the mountain. And then at dusk, we need to turn back to town, and I need to turn into an outlet to turn the car around. And I just turned in, and I was just completely shocked because the original World Peace Flame Monument was right in front of my windshield.
You see?
And it was amazing.
I can just imagine, but that is for me the miracle of the spiral of life. That if you follow that spiral, you will be exactly where you need to be, exactly when you need it. And this peace flame, talk a little bit about discovering it, how you could bring it back to Ashland.
So when I saw that and see the flame on top of this tall monument and with World Peace Flame etched on the glass, and I went out and really it moved me so deeply because I learned later on what it means that even deepened my incredible awe about what happened, because the World Peace Flame is gathering 7 sacred flame from 5 continents, flew live to Wales, and they were joined and become the World Peace Flame. And the Asian flame is from Gandhi's memorial. And also I learned there's only one other World Peace Flame in the United States. That is in the Civil Rights Museum, the Lorraine Motel, the assassination site of Martin Luther King.
Oh my.
So the teaching of Gandhi and Martin Luther King is peace through nonviolence, but justice. And when I come in the visual contact of the World Peace Flame, it touched me so deeply because I live in Southern Oregon, and the history here, especially on the land where the natives and the Chinese, what they have gone through on the land, and there's a lot of bloodshed. And I was so inspired to bring the World Peace Flame to Ashland to heal the ancestral wounds.
Oh, that is so absolutely incredibly beautiful to talk about the wounds healing through this peace flame, because so many of us have suffered in our lineage in the past that we were born into.
It's in our DNA, yes.
It's in our DNA. And to heal that, that's why I think each generation has the opportunity to do just what you did, to help the healing and to do the forgiveness and to move on so that we can have peace. And that brings me back to David, because the Ashland culture of peace is one of the highlights of my Rotary E-Club, because when you start to talk about the Ashland culture of peace and you're a city of peace, to me it says that the whole city's involved with this. It's not just you, Irene, and you, David, but the whole city's involved. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, as I had mentioned, that coming from the background of working with the United Nations and Pathways to Peace, and with a focus for many years on the International Day of Peace, which is wonderful, and September 21st now every year, but it's a day that comes and goes. And Irene and I talked about what does it look like on an ongoing basis when we talk about really a culture of peace, really what being serious about this, and what does that look like? And so we started working on it, and had a couple others join us, but holding the whole idea of creating a Ashland Culture Peace Commission. So the idea was to establish an organization, which we also brought it to the mayor and city council, and about the whole idea. And soon we learned it's best not, we thought we wanted to be part of the city as a commission, but we decided, no, it's best to have it as a citizens commission, a nonprofit organization, so we can go wherever we need to all parts of the community to engage them in the whole idea and practice of a culture of peace. So we've done that. We have worked with the school district, with the Chamber of Commerce, with the city council, with the police department, with the homeless shelter, but it's really engaging everyone in what is a culture of peace for you. And it begins with each of us individually, as we know. I mean, we all are the beginning of the choices and decisions that make peace or not. And so we got the community focused on that. And in September 21st, 2015, launched the Ashland Culture Peace Commission. So it's 4 years. It's been an incredible journey. We've engaged the community in so many different ways. But really, and also I have here, we had a proclamation with the city council and establishing the Ashland as a city of peace, and also joining the International Cities of Peace. That was part of our leadership. But fundamentally, what we're about is education. We're educating the community and working with this whole community on a culture of peace. What does that mean? What does that look like? And how do we all take steps to create that? So it's been an amazing journey, and with the World Peace Flame was a huge step, a huge highlight, because it took 3 years to get it landed. Because Irene came back and she was so inspired, and just like, and there are people go, no, and she said, no, it's going to happen. So 3 years later, it was by serendipity and intention. It is now at what's called the Thalden Pavilion. It's a striking, beautiful pavilion. It's at the base of what do you call it?
A monument.
Well, it's a monument, right? And it's
the obelisk.
Yeah, the obelisk. It's the base of an obelisk on the Southern Oregon University campus in their sustainability center, and it is right across the street from a middle school. And you tell them about the
and it is
school.
also carved. This obelisk is carved by a Native American sculptor. So it's by serendipity. The natives are so much with the peace flame.
You have had a big impact on Ashland, and I imagine it kind of goes into everything that happens there. There's a culture of peace that has emerged in Ashland. Am I correct about that?
Yes, and it's something that you continue to bring it forward in different ways, and part of the education. And actually, when we started, we had the editor of the local paper as one of our commissioners, and he opened the door. So now for 4.5 years, we've had an article in the paper every 2 weeks. So 4 years of articles, part of the education process. But over time, it becomes part of the environment. It becomes part of the thinking. We know it's impacted, the police department and
The whole community.
Yeah.
And coming back to the Peace Flame, it is across the street from the middle school. And that inspired the middle school teacher to have her class become the flame keepers. This class of students, every Friday, they will go across the street and refill the oil lamp, which is the World Peace Flame, with recycled biomass oil. Rain or shine, they take it so seriously, and they dust the lamp, and then they refill the fuel every Friday.
It's like a sacred journey, isn't it, for them to do that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And it's had a huge impact on the students who because we, talked with them and interviewed them, and, big impact on their thinking, how they see themselves. And they can, impact peace in this community.
And
Absolutely.
they actually claim that they are now the agent of change.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
my.
really took it on.
Yeah. And there's one student he was a speaker. at a global peace conference that we had here, as these, the first year in high school, and this had such an impact on him. He is speaking out, and he is really, giving him the pathway.
That is the most important part of this whole conversation, how to motivate younger people to get involved and to believe that they can make a difference on our planet. And you definitely have that model. Thank you so much. Well, now people are going to hear this and then they're going to want to go to your website. Would you talk a little bit about how is the best way to find out more about the Ashland Culture of Peace?
Well, our website is Ashland, ASHLANDCPC.org. So ashlandcpc.org. And there's a lot can be found there about the Peace Flame. And we've got actually a whole lot about
and
this.
the conference,
And the conference, the Global
and the
Peace
archive of our articles.
Yeah, we have all of our articles and all of the newsletters we send out periodically. And just want to share that the mission of the National Cultural Peace Commission, the mission is to provide leadership for a community-wide movement dedicated to transforming our attitudes, behaviors, and institutions into ones that foster harmonious relationships with each other and the natural world. So it's really about relationship, with each other, but it's also waking up to our own self and how we all have work to do. We all, I think my personal view is that's why we're on this earth, is continue to learn lessons. And so this is a big one about peace building.
Absolutely. I'm going to thank you both, Irene, for what you have brought to the Ashland Peace Culture, and to you, David, for holding that flame before you even had a flame for peace. I love that. And I'm going to ask you, if you would mind, just give us, what would you like the world to know? What would you like to say to the world who is going to be watching this?
Well, I'll just say that it's really important to know that we all have a choice, and creating peace in our lives, because we're in a relationship, we're in a family, we're in where we work, where we go to school, wherever it is, or driving down the street. But we all have a choice as to how we function, how we behave, how we interact, as well as it's just learning who we are and the choices that we can make, and to do so towards the better, towards our higher values, essentially.
Absolutely.
And we can all do that, and it's all by choice, and we can do that collectively as a community and as a city.
Irene, I just love the fact that you have found that peace flame and you brought it to Ashland. I'm going to just remind everyone that I'm Barbara Muller. You're listening to peacepodcast.org. We are just so delighted to have Irene and David, and I'm going to interview each of them a little bit later, and I'm really looking forward to the next conversation. I'm Barbara Muller, thanking you for listening, and you can find us on peacepodcast.org, and I look forward to having you be a guest on my show. Just call me at 805-680-9445, and I'll interview you on the phone. Bye for now, David and Irene, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Great. Bye-bye.
My pleasure.